In my video, I'm under house arrest, I shared how my long-term illness forced me to live almost completely housebound for 5 months early this year. At such times, the havoc caused by my illness took a toll on my relationships, which broke my heart. I use my brother's visit as a good example of how trying this can be, but also as an example of how approaching such a problem in a creative way can sometimes transform a difficult situation into fun. I've been so excited about having my brother and his family come visit, but entertaining visitors poses a challenge because when we make plans, even weeks or months in advance, I have no way of knowing whether I'll be well enough to visit when they arrive. Simply having visitors in my home raises the pollution level there, which often makes me sicker because of the fragrances and chemicals trailing people in the house in things such as their shampoos and laundry products. Because of my poor health, when my brother called me from the airport, I had to ask him if he and his family could check into a hotel, which was a very painful thing for me to have to do. I despaired that the visit would become yet another fiasco caused by my illness. As a result, I began to think creatively about how we might have fun despite the limitations posed by my sickness, which included me not being able to leave the house with them and making easy meals. That's when I came up with an idea that might lead to a wonderfully fun and memorable visit. My idea was to tell my niece and nephew a funny story about a scene their father once caused at a certain dairy bar that my family loved to visit on the way to see my grandmother. My niece and nephew cannot hear enough of my stories about the mischievous and naughty things their father did as a kid. Then we would not only stage a reenactment of this event, but for dinner we would eat grilled pimento cheese sandwiches, which were the sandwiches my family loved eating so much at the Rowan Dairy Bar. In the reenactment, I played my younger self, my niece played my brother Joey, and my nephew played my father. To make it as realistic as possible, of course, we had to start out with my brother and me fighting in the back seat of the car.
Stop it, Dad. Could you please tell Joey to stop hitting me with the seat belt? And while you're at it, could you please tell him to get off of my side of the car?
You don't own it.
Hey, knock it off back there. Now. Oh, we're at the dairy bar. Who wants pimento cheese sandwiches?
Yay!
I do.
Once seated at our table, Joey decided that he wanted to order a banana milkshake, but my father immediately tried to discourage him from doing it because he predicted my brother wouldn't like it. I became terribly indignant, as only a teenager can do, and protested that my brother should be able to order whatever he wanted. That's when my father leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Would you be quiet? They're 10 cents more expensive." I was furious. My father was in most ways an incredibly generous and compassionate man. But when it came to money, it's true that he was cheap. He raised us with such money-saving ways that had left me with the idea that doing something like making a long-distance telephone call was a wildly extravagant thing to do, that it practically had to be a matter of life and death to justify it. And when staying at motels on our car trips, our family of 5 would sleep in one room. The room had a rock-bottom price with a not-so-lovely view of the motel's garbage cans. So, in exasperation with my father, I slapped a dime down onto the counter to cover the extra cost of Joey's banana shake. The waitress then brought the shake in 2 paper cups, one nestled inside the other, but neglected to explain that the inside cup had a hole in it. So when Joey pulled the cups apart, most of the shake spilled. Of course, it went all over my father's lap. But the grand finale came when Joey tasted the remains of his banana milkshake.
I don't like it. It's gross.
Gee whiz.
At the time, I wanted to kill that kid. But years later, our reenactment of the event led to this fabulous evening of laughing and reminiscing. Meet my brother Joe. He was Joey in the reenactment.
Yeah, and it's been great coming out with the kids and visiting Ann because they get an opportunity to hear about my many exploits as a child and great source of humor last night and telling stories of all the mischief I created as a little kid. So it starts with the Rowan Dairy story, but there are many more chapters. So, but it's a great way for the kids to see Ann and to connect and to have a wonderful visit.
And the thing is that I spent most of the evening entertaining them with stories of Joe's escapades, but they got a heavily sanitized version, Joe. The stories I could tell, don't get me started. If you'd like to know about where I first learned about the value of being resourceful, you might be interested in my video, What I Discovered from an Egyptian with String and Rubber Bands.